Holy cow, man! But now the season's over, so we got to forget about. Everyone gets to forget about it and take go into summer. And no one's forgetting about anything. Everybody's that's all they keep talking about. It's nonstop, which is great. I was looking at our schedule for the summer for all the basketball that is going on. It doesn't stop. It
No.
started in April, people.
Yes.
I'm talking about AAU, where all of the guys from the Hoosier.com and us have to go to watch guys, and I'm like, holy crap! It started in early April, and this thing goes until the back end of June or July, rather, the very end of July. So it goes right into August, which is great. And I promise you, by then there are going to be people just ready to strangle people for a vacation because then you got football coming right in. It's like, holy smokes. But it just doesn't stop. And it seems like the attention is more now because of the transfer portal and NIL. You got everybody looking at everybody, who's going to where. It's just somewhat makes it a little bit more fun to keep a scorecard. But if you're a fan, I'm sure it's not that fun because you're sitting there wondering who's leaving, who can they get. But it's definitely a different mindset in the off season now.
Yeah, but here's some of the plus side of this, Jim, is that in the past, you wouldn't have any doubt that Trayce was leaving. Even if you know that he's not going to get picked or picked in a reasonable spot. You'd say, that's it, he's done. He's played 3 years, he's gone. Now, he might make some money staying at IU. So he might come back. Oscar Tshiebwe, reigning National Player of the Year, unanimous National Player of the Year, might come back. That would never have happened 5 years ago. That player would have been gone. Do you know how many players left college basketball to be either second round or undrafted players between, say, 2015 and 2021? I mean, it was hundreds. And they basically just, thought, if I stay here any longer, people are going to think so much less of me as a prospect, even though that was always a fallacy. They thought of you what they thought of you. And if you got better, they thought more of you. And if you didn't get any better, then they thought, okay, we were right. He wasn't going to get any better. But they didn't think less of you because they already didn't think that much. But that fallacy drove literally hundreds of players into the draft when they had eligibility remaining that was worth something. If it wasn't even worth anything more than, say, your free education and your cost of attendance money, it probably was still worth more than a year in the G League. But that's the way players were being conditioned to believe, mostly by agents that were trying to draw them into the draft. And so now they can't do that anymore. Because the player thinks, wait, you're telling me I'm going to go make $35,000 in Grand Rapids, and that's better than the $500,000 I'm making where I am now, or $250,000, or whatever it is. It obviously depends on the player and the market, et cetera. But they're all, they all have the opportunity to do well now, whereas before they didn't. So we're seeing players this past year. There's no way Kofi Coburn would have played for Illinois if it hadn't been for name, image, and likeness. It just wouldn't have happened. And so we're seeing more and more of that. More players come back. I think we'll see Hunter Dickinson back in the Big Ten next year. I think there's a good chance we'll see Trayce. I think there's a very good chance we'll see Kofi Coburn, because where else is he going to go?
He's not listed up high enough. That's what I'm trying to. There are so many guys that are up there, and the game is changing. A guy like Kofi back in the day he'd be gone for a couple of reasons, like you just said, but also because he's just a beast. But the game has changed.
Game's changed,
and he doesn't have a shot whatsoever.
Right. And he can't guard on the perimeter, and he's not a shot blocker. What they want in a big guy now is dynamism. That's what they're looking for. That's the first thing.
Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be an interesting experiment given his lack of physicality. But the idea that what Kofi was 10 years ago would have been a top 20 pick at least. Now he's basically undraftable. It's I don't know where he plays professionally after he gets done with Illinois, because don't forget what happens in the United States is basically being borrowed from the European game. That's why there are so many European big guys and the American big guy is still behind, because he's got to retrain himself to play differently in order to be a professional. And we've not done a good job in this country of training that player to be able to play at the NBA level, that the 6'10" and above player. We just haven't done enough with retraining those players into being successful at that level.
And Kevin, this is Indiana's opportunity. They've had the mistakes have been administrative for the reasons that Indiana basketball is where it is now. We can go back years and talk about that stuff, but this is the grand opportunity that I think they have needed to just get back there quicker, because it has been season after season, it seems, of being one cycle off, of needing to have a one group stay a year longer. Well, now they can get that done with the NIL, basically, because Trayce Jackson-Davis can make more money in NIL than he can in a G League money. I promise you, and he already is probably. Mike alluded to that. So, and he was just announced as being one of the inaugural people in the Hoosiers for Good class that they've signed. We don't know how much that is for, but I was given a number for Race, and if that is indeed accurate, there's no way that I can see people making those deals if those guys were not coming back. Now, Trayce is not a given. If he were to get drafted in the top 30, he's gone. But there is no. Yeah, exactly. But there is nothing that I have seen that leads me to believe that is going to happen, Kevin.
Well, Mike, I'm just curious about Mike's take on it in terms of, because, my take is obviously, we haven't seen the perimeter game. Now, does that mean that he's got it in his back pocket and he hasn't shown it? And maybe he could show it in workouts. I don't know. There's been conflicting stories about that. We've heard what Mike Woodson say, he's not confident in the shot. And we've heard Trayce say, hey, Mike wants me to just be a back to the basket guy and I'm going to do what's best for the team. So, but if he does shoot the ball well enough during workouts and he does show the skills needed to be a big man, do you think he can raise a stock or not? I mean, what's
Yeah, I think he can. I think it's going to be hard to become a first-round pick based on workouts. Not impossible, but hard. But could he raise himself to the point where he might be, this is not a Kofi Coburn problem. I mean, Trayce has the feet to play, to cover anywhere. I mean, so this is not like that. But that offensive component, they're going to put you out there. How are you going to score baskets? That's the question that they're going to want to see. And if they're going to invest a first-round pick in you, they're going to want to believe that you can make baskets. Second-round pick, early second round, with maybe a guarantee of a 2-year guaranteed deal rather than a two-way or something like that. I don't think that's beyond his reach if he were to show extraordinarily well in workouts and at the combine, that sort of thing. But I think it's hard to say, oh, forget everything I've put on tape for 3 years. Just pay attention to my workout film. There might be some feeling at the end of the first round, well, what else are we going to do? I mean, this guy's a legit athlete. He's a great kid. He's obviously he can block shots. He can move his feet. So he can probably play in our league. But at his size, it's different because he needs to be able to play on the perimeter on offense, because they're not going to play him in the post. They might post him from time to time, but he's got to show that he can play up the line. I mean, you look at Bam Adebayo. I don't think he's quite as physical as Bam, but I think that's kind of the model for how he's going to have to succeed at the NBA level. He's going to have to be able to guard players at least his size, maybe bigger, which I think he can do. He's shown that over 3 years. That's on tape. He's going to have to show he can move his feet to be able to switch on defense. I don't think that's a problem for him. but Bam can take his offensive game up to the free throw line, no problem. Up to the 3-point line, not bad. I'd have to look at what Bam's numbers are, but I think that, to me, that's kind of that's the model for him to an extent. As I said, he's not quite as physically powerful, but he's more powerful than you think. Bam, like I said, Bam is definitely a free throw line shooter, and I don't mean just foul shots, but he's not made a lot of threes in his career. He's only made 7 threes. So you can play in that league without being a 3-point shooter. That's Bam. That, to me, that is what Trayce's model for success would be. I'm going to be as close to Bam as I can be. And, like Bam has started on an NBA finalist, and he started 240 out of 340 games. So, I mean, that's a pretty high target, but like I said, I don't think it's unreachable for him to at least be an approximation of that.